and we'll take a listen here.
Modifiers describe, clarify, and give more detail about another word or word group. Adjectives and adverbs are examples of modifiers. An adjective is a word that modifies a noun, a large dog. An adverb is a word that modifies a verb, adjective, or another adverb. He walks quickly. A prepositional phrase is another type of modifier. A prepositional phrase can modify a noun, a verb, or a group of words. The boy with the brown hair. A misplaced modifier misleads readers by describing the wrong item in a sentence. A dangling modifier describes a subject that is missing from a sentence or is in the wrong position. A modifier belongs as close as possible to the word it modifies.
Okay, I see Nilda joined us. Hi, Nilda. How are you doing today? So the thing with modifiers, we know basically the two types you're mostly going to deal with are adjectives and adverbs. Adjectives modify and describe a noun. So like the colorful bouquet of flowers, colorful being the adjective. Adverb describes a verb. So she quickly ran. Quickly would be the adverb. And what we, sometimes we put those in the wrong place. So that's why they're talking here about dangling modifiers and misplaced modifiers. And we want to make sure that those descriptive words fall in the right place. So our next page here, we'll see where we have to put those and how to use them. So a misplaced modifier, in this case, their example is, I only ate one slice of pizza. And that's a little bit confusing. What it's saying is you only ate the pizza and did not throw it on the floor. It's confusing as to what happened to the rest of the pizza. So to correct that, only needs to go before one slice. So instead you say, I ate only one slice of pizza. A dangling modifier, having adopted a new dog, the leash was purchased. This case, it confuses who purchased the leash. It doesn't point to the person that pointed the leash. So you replace that with having adopted a new dog, Jane purchased a leash. You have to make sure that you have that additional word there to give the reader the information to understand who is purchasing the leash. Back to misplaced modifiers. Incorrect would be, when Lucas invites friends to dinner, he tries new recipes often. That doesn't indicate that Lucas tries new recipes when he invites his friends over. Instead, you want to say, when Lucas invites friends to dinner, he often tries new recipes. You move often to in front of tries. Again, incorrect would be, the coach gave the athletes advice on his team. That makes it sound like it's the coach's team and not his team that he's giving advice to. So correcting that, you say the coach gave the athletes on his team advice. Because the other way sounds like he's part of the team rather than the coach of his team. And another dangling modifier, before moving to Texas, Florida was my home. It's missing information. You need to have I to make a complete statement. Before I moved to Texas, Florida was my home. We need a subject there so the reader understands who we're talking about. And our information on the side, some adverbs commonly misplace sentences some adverbs are commonly misplaced in sentences. These include only, often, very, almost, nearly, rarely, always, and merely. So anytime we encounter those words, or you're going to use those words, you want to be careful where you're putting them in the sentence. And the second box, pay careful attention to the placement of prepositional phrases. And the example, on his team, modifies players, not advice. So going back to this statement here, the coach gave the athletes advice on his team. With that prepositional phrase, on his team, you want to make sure that you say the coach gave the athletes on his team advice. Okay. So let's jump over to our quiz. And here we go. All right, and we have a test taking tip. Misplaced modifiers can be tricky to identify when you're reading quickly. Underline or highlight any descriptive words or phrases, and then think about what those details are meant to describe. So if you run into something like that, an adverb or an adjective, once you identify it, look and see which word it is trying to describe. And that'll help out. Sometimes you have to slow down a little bit and read the sentence once or twice to identify that. And our first question, Amina, would you like to take this one for us? If you can. If not, I can go through them. That'd be fine. Okay, Nilda, how about you? Are you available, or would you rather me go through the questions here? Okay, I'll go ahead and go through them then. So on number one here, although nearly over, we left the game early because the Colts were losing. So our choices are, although we were nearly over, we left early because the Colts were losing the game. B is, although nearly over the game, we left early because the Colts were losing. C is, although the Colts were losing, we were nearly over and left the game early. And D, although the game was nearly over, we left early because the Colts were losing. The correct answer here is D. And if you read it through, you'll notice that it makes a little more sense. Although the game was nearly over, we left early because the Colts were losing. Okay, and yeah, so I don't mind going through these and reading them and selecting the answers. Just let me know in the chat, or if you want to come in, if you have any questions or anything, just let me know. Okay, and then moving on to our paragraph here. How to make lasagna. Lasagna is a popular pasta. Lasagna is a popular pasta dish that is relatively easy to make at home, even for inexperienced cooks. In fact, it is the perfect dish to make when serving a crowd because you can prepare lasagna in advance, and just about everyone loves it. The recipe also is incredibly flexible. Like many other classic dishes, so the correct answer here is B, and we'll look as to why that is. So like many other classic dishes, lasagna lends itself to different variations. In A, like many other dishes, you can make lasagna in different variations. That's changing the subject. The subject is lasagna, so we want to make sure that that's referenced there in our answer. These other ones, it changes the subject away from lasagna, like people, and this is just incorrect because it doesn't have lasagna in there to let you know what the subject is. So B. Okay, number 2 down here. To make basic lasagna, you will need about 1 pound of lasagna noodles, for a 13 by 9 pan. Basic lasagna also includes 3 cheeses, ricotta, mozzarella, and parmesan for the filling. B, people often use tomato sauce and ground meat. So it's a simple sentence there. For the filling, you have an introductory phrase. For the filling, comma, people often use tomato sauce and ground meat. So that's directing you to, first off, people as the subject, and then we use often as the modifier. So we want that before use, which is the verb that we're modifying. So people often use tomato sauce, B. However, if you are feeling adventurous, substitute roasted eggplant, spinach, or other vegetables for the meat. Now you are ready to cook. First, boil the noodles in a large pot until they are barely softened. A is the correct answer here. First, that's an introductory word. First, comma, boil the noodles in a large pot until they are barely softened. The other answers there, just so you know the difference. Boil the noodles in a large pot first until softened. That's incorrect. First should not fall in that part of the sentence. Boil first the noodles in a large pot until barely softened. That doesn't make sense either. And then boil noodles in a large pot until first. That's nonsensical too. First is going to come at the beginning of the sentence. Okay. And next, to prepare the lasagna for baking, layer ingredients into the pan in the following manner. B is the correct answer there. So to prepare the lasagna for baking, layer ingredients into the pan in the following manner. Layer in this instance is a verb instead of a noun, right? We are layering things into the pan, so layer ingredients into the pan. Okay, so B, B, A, B for that section. Let me submit that. We'll move on to the workbook. Okay, once again, we have a few examples here to take a look at. So misplaced modifiers. Kara almost ran 2 miles before feeling tired. To correct the sentence, ask yourself, which word should almost modify? So to correct that, Kara ran almost 2 miles. If you look at that, the incorrect sentence, it sounds like Kara almost ran. So she was walking fast, but she didn't quite get to a run, right? That's the word you're modifying is ran. In the second sentence, to correct that, Kara ran almost 2 miles, meaning she ran the whole way. She just didn't make quite the distance of 2 miles. And then on the dangling modifier side, driving to work, 2 deer ran in front of my car. To correct your sentence, ask yourself who was driving the car. So the correction will be, while driving to work, I saw 2 deer run in front of my car, or while I was driving to work, 2 deer ran in front of my car. Without those corrections, without adding I, it almost sounds like 2 deer were driving to work and ran in front of your car. So you want to make sure that we avoid those confusions. And in our box over here, remember that a modifier can be an adjective, an adverb, or a prepositional phrase. A modifier can modify more than one word. For example, she is very tall and thin. So the modifier very is modifying both tall and thin. And then place an adverb after the direct object in a sentence with a verb and a direct object. For example, read the book carefully, not read carefully the book. You can see the difference there, which one is clearer, and which what word the modifier is directed at. Okay, so now using logic, introductory phrases beginning with to and verb or verb and ing often become dangling modifiers. To correct a dangling modifier, determine the intended subject of the sentence and rewrite the sentence to include it. So here we go. Many people who plan their vacations overlook the cost of transportation often. And I can see right away what we're going to change here. So our choices are A, many people who often plan their vacations overlook the cost of transportation. B's, many people who plan their vacations overlook often the cost of transportation. C, planning their vacations often, many people overlook the cost of transportation. Or D, many people who plan their vacations often overlook the cost of transportation. So the answer is going to be D. And you see that we've moved often, corrected where that should be because of what it's modifying. Many people who plan their vacations often overlook the cost of transportation. What they're overlooking, right, is the cost of transportation. They're doing that often. And question 2. As you can see from my resume, my experience almost meets all requirements of the position. So our first choice, as you can see from my resume, almost all requirements for the position are met by my experience. Option B, as you can see from my resume, my experience meets almost all requirements for the position. Option C, my experience almost meets all requirements for the position, as you can see from my resume. And D, my experience meets all requirements almost for the position, as you can see from my resume. The correct answer is B. As you can see from my resume, my experience meets almost all requirements for the position. So rather than in the question itself, my experience almost meets all requirements, that's basically saying that none of his or hers experience meets any of the qualifications. It's saying basically that all of the experience falls short, and moving that to in front of all changes that. So in fact, most of their qualifications meet and only a few do not. Okay, and how to prepare your taxes. The basic forms that most Americans use are the 1040, the 1040A, and the 1040EZ. Which form best suits your needs? Form 1040 is the standard tax form. Correct answer is B. Used only by people who itemize deductions. Here we're modifying people with only. So used only by people who itemize deductions. That's a specific group of people who are itemizing their deductions. For simpler returns, you may use Form 1040A or even the even more basic Form 1040EZ. Those in the military should refer to Publication 3, which details all tax-related scenarios for military personnel. Before starting your taxes, the correct answer is B. you need to gather your income and deduction documentation. Here, you are the subject before starting your taxes. So in that next phrase, we need to start with you to give that an explanation. Who is starting your taxes? Who needs to gather the income and deduction documentation? That's the same person. So we're going to put you there. B. And this process may seem like a greater challenge than doing your taxes, but it shouldn't overwhelm you. The most important document is the W-2 form from your employer, which states both your annual wages and the taxes paid through the end of the tax year. You also will need proof of other sources of income, such as unemployment, Social Security benefits, state tax refunds, or alimony. Additionally, if you plan to itemize deductions, be sure that you have receipts for items such as medical or moving expenses and mortgage interest paid. Now that you have all of your documentation in order, you're ready to fill out your forms. As you proceed, be sure C, you fill out the forms correctly and completely. Again, you is the subject. As you proceed, comma, you will fill out the forms correctly and completely. Otherwise, something like D, you will correctly and completely out the forms. That's all out of order as far as, filling out, fill and out should be together. Sorry, it should be C. There we go, C. And finally, doing so will make it easier for the IRS to read and review your return quickly. Also remember to sign your return. The IRS says unsigned tax returns are one of the most common taxpayer mistakes. After completing your forms and making copies for your C files, you can mail your return. Again, we're looking at you as the subject or a form of you. After completing your forms and making copies for your files, you can return or you can mail your return. All right, next one. I am writing in response to the editorial about impulsive and reckless shopping, in my opinion. Consumers must educate themselves about how stores try to manipulate and encourage their customers to buy more and spend more. How many times have you entered a store for the D purpose of buying only one thing? Here, only is the modifier. You're going to the store to buy one thing, so only should be before the one thing. You're only buying one thing. The other one's A, only purpose of buying one thing. That's out of order. You have more than one purpose, right? That's saying your only purpose is to buy one thing. Purpose of only buying one thing is correct. I'm sorry, that's incorrect because you're buying only one thing. That's moving it into front of the verb, so it's modifying the verb instead of the object that you're buying. All right, and this situation probably happens more times than you can count. To take advantage of this habit, retailers provide encouragement everywhere. B is the correct answer. To take advantage of this habit, retailers provide encouragement everywhere. Product placement encourages people to buy impulsively. For example, by locating basic necessities such as milk and bread in the back of the store or in the middle of an aisle. A, grocery designers force you to walk past additional items. So the subject here is grocery designers, right? By locating basic necessities such as milk and bread at the back of the store or in the middle of an aisle, we don't have the subject there yet. So, you know, who is doing that action? Who is locating those basic necessities? The grocery designers force you to walk past additional items, A. Furthermore, grocery store designers intentionally place expensive items at eye level and make it difficult for shoppers to maneuver quickly by forcing frequent stops. They also are sure to place goodies such as candy bars or magazines near the checkout counter. In fact, retailers base their product placement on the assumption that you will buy what you see. Shopping accessories may make it easy to buy. After all, you always find plenty of oversized shopping carts near the front of a store, but you may have difficulty finding a handheld basket. Helping customers shop. B, retailers place bright yellow sale stickers on store shelves. Again, retailers, that's the subject. Who's helping customers shop? That's the retailers. Retailers place bright yellow sale stickers on store shelves. Here, you know, A, bright yellow sale stickers are placed. That's out of order. In C, by placing bright yellow sale stickers, we don't know who's placing them in either of those answers. None of these give you the correct information. You have to have a subject there, and it's retailers. Okay, and finally, tips for tricking out your car. Tricking out your car can be a great way to express C, yourself creatively and add style to your vehicle. So here again, you are the subject, your is the subject. So C gives us everything in the correct order. Yourself creatively and add style to your vehicle. Any automobile, from a classic muscle car to a brand new pickup truck, can be outfitted with custom gear. Various options can make your vehicle A, look and drive exactly as you wish. A is the correct answer. Anything else? So B, exactly look and drive as you wish. That is exactly is modifying the wrong part there. However, when tricking out your car, remember to do so within the laws governing vehicles and transportation. For drivers looking to boost a vehicle's performance, a host of modifications to the engine can provide additional horsepower. Options for changing an auto's appearance include designer paint jobs, body kits and accessories, and custom tires and rims. Alterations can be made to shocks and springs to give the vehicle a desired lowrider look. However you decide to trick out your car, you will find it helpful to develop a step-by-step plan and budget for your modifications. Identifying the labor and cost involved for each modification will help you determine which items are absolutely necessary. Carrying a hefty price tag, C, some modifications may prove too expensive. Some is our modifier. And we are enhancing the word modifications. So hefty price tag, some modifications may prove too expensive. Your plan will help you determine the order in which to make your modifications. For example, you should, D, always complete bodywork before selecting new tires and rims. Finally, your plan will allow you to double check each modification to ensure that it conforms to all laws. Okay, that's the, wait a minute, what happened here? All right, on that second paragraph, the first answer should be D, which I think I maybe just selected the wrong one when I went back through. So D should be the correct answer there. I think I might just re-clicked the wrong answer when we were going through it. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. The big thing about modifiers is making sure you understand which word you're modifying. And that's going to direct you as to where you need to put the modifier. What's the subject of the sentence? That's going to help you. And which type of word you're looking at to modify its position in the sentence. Any questions before we move on to advanced pronoun use? Okay, so these two sections go really well together because now we're looking at basically these two sections. You really have to understand where the subject is in the sentence. That's what you're looking for. And that's going to help you to use for correct pronoun use and correct modifier use. So here, by the time you complete this lesson, you will be able to use subject and object pronouns correctly and use who and whom correctly. Who and whom are one of the most misused words in the English language. Those get confused a lot. So we'll get a lesson about that here. And here's our audio.
As you learned in Lesson 2, subject pronouns, I, you, he, she, it, we, they, perform an action or are described. Object pronouns receive actions. For example, in the sentence, he saw it, he performs the action, and it receives the action. Object pronouns me, you, him, her, them, us, and it usually follow verbs or words such as above, at, before, between, from, near, of, and to. Be careful when pronouns are compound. Their case remains the same. The pronoun who indicates an unknown person or persons, or introduces a part of a sentence that gives more information about a person or individuals. Who changes to whom when it is an object. Remember, too, that the pronouns this, that, and which must have antecedents.
Right, so subject and object pronouns, that's the big lesson here. So as it states, subject pronouns I, you, he, she, it, we, they. If you are talking about yourself as the subject of a sentence, you're going to use I. I went to the store. And then if you are speaking about someone as an object, like they are receiving the action. If you go to the store for somebody, then I would say I went to the store for her. Her is the object. She's receiving the action. So as we go through our examples here, that will probably make some more sense. And that also applies to who and who. It's the same thing. Oh, wait, did I? Yeah. Go back real quick. Okay, next. Okay, yeah, I missed a spot there. Okay, so our examples. First off, in the box, use who, whom, whoever, and whomever for people. Use that or which for objects and ideas. For example, the car that I bought is 6 years old. The dealer who sold it to me is now out of business. Sometimes words can come between a pronoun and the verb. For example, choose someone who you know will do a good job. The pronoun who indicates the person who will do the action. The words you know come between who and the verb will do. So in this case, who is the subject pronoun. Just like right up here at the top in our example, who is asking these questions? Who is the subject pronoun? Whom is Sonia inviting? Whom is the object pronoun? So whom is receiving the action of inviting? Sonia is the subject. So you could also say Sonia is inviting whom? The man who asked the question is my brother. The subject pronoun who indicates a person doing the action of asking the question. So it was this person's brother. That's the object, who. The man whom Sonia called was not at home. Whom represents the person receiving the action. Sonia called the man. Sonia is the subject. Called is the verb. The man is receiving the action. So whom is the object pronoun. Whoever wins the contest will receive the prize. Whoever means whatever person. The person's identity is unknown, so we use whoever. Ella can hire whomever she chooses. Whomever represents the person or individual receiving the action of Ella's hiring. So there's the difference. Whoever is the subject pronoun, whomever the object pronoun. Kay and I met Lola at the mall. I is part of the subject of the sentence. So that's often confused too. When do you use I and when do you use me? So it's not written in stone, but most of the time, if it's falling at the beginning of a sentence, it's going to be I because it's the subject. Kay and I met Lola at the mall. And then the next one you see, it's the object pronoun. So it's Lola met Kay and me at the mall, because me is the object receiving the action. We have no news. This situation is a concern. We are concerned because we have no news. So this alone gives the pronoun no antecedent. There's nothing really it's describing. There's missing information here. You can't use, well, if I can, well, I can't draw today for some reason. What's going on with that? Well, anyway, I was going to point out to this situation is a concern. Using this alone gives a pronoun no antecedent. A noun can be added or the sentence rewritten to avoid the use of this in this way. We have no news. This situation is a concern. There's not enough information there. We have no news. The lack of news is a concern. That would be a better way to write it. Everyone knows his or her task. Everyone always takes singular pronouns. Everyone, while it may be a group of a lot of people, it is looked at as a singular identity. So it's a singular noun. He cooked himself a gourmet dinner. He and himself are the same person. We want to make sure that our pronouns match. Use pronouns like myself or yourself only when the subject and object are the same. Those subject and object have to be in agreement. So he, himself, she, herself, you, yourself. Okay, on to our quiz. So here we go. So our test taking tip, the pronoun who is similar to the pronouns he and she. Whom is similar to him and her. If you are uncertain whether to use who or whom, try substituting one of the other pronouns. That's great advice. So we'll actually try that with the question right here. I wonder whom is calling me again. So can you say here, well, I don't think it's actually going to quite work in that situation. So I wonder whom is calling me again. Who is an object pronoun, but we need a subject pronoun. So the answer is going to be D. We need to change whom to who. I wonder who is calling me again. Who being the subject that's calling. Me, in this case, I am the object receiving the action. And we drop down, dear Mr. Fisk, excuse me, I am writing to apply for the sous chef position at Taste as advertised in Chicago Restaurants Weekly. I believe my training and experience qualify me for the position. My culinary interest began in high school, where I took courses in basic knife skills and restaurant management at the student-run restaurant. Upon graduation, several students and I, B, received a certificate of excellence for the high grades and commitment we demonstrated throughout the culinary program. So here we use B because I is a subject pronoun. I and several students are the subject of the sentence, and that's clearer than several students and me, because me is a object pronoun, not a subject pronoun. Several of we students, that's also incorrect. And me and several students is also using object pronoun. So after high school, I attended the Fairfield Culinary Institute, where I completed the culinary arts program. I served as an intern for 3 months in a local restaurant. Correct here is this internship, C, gave me experience in assisting the grill chef and various line cooks. Well, we mentioned before, you need more information. This gave me experience in assisting the grill chef and various line cooks. You're lacking the needed context. Now, it's all about cooking. It's all about an internship, but each sentence needs to make sense and supply that information. This alone doesn't give you enough information. Which internship gave me experience? That's incorrect. And then D, which gave me experience. If you made a compound sentence, you could use that. I served as an intern for 3 months in a local restaurant, comma, which gave me experience in assisting the grill chef and various line cooks. As a new sentence, though, you have to go with C. From my entire graduating class, the faculty selected 5A students, including me, for showing superior kitchen skills and knowledge. We received 6-month fellowships at upscale area restaurants. I served a line cook at restaurant Gastrique. A, because me is the object pronoun. For my entire graduating class, the faculty is the subject here. The faculty selected, that's our verb. Students, including me, are the object. The students and me are receiving the action. So that eliminates I, that eliminates we, and that eliminates us students and I. After my fellowship, I thought to broaden my experience with other cuisines. I worked for 6 months as the pantry chef at Vietnamese and French fusion restaurant. Then I was promoted to grill chef, a position I currently hold. I would love to take on more responsibilities in a kitchen, and Taste is a restaurant whose innovative approach I have long admired. I believe my skills, enthusiasm, and reliability would be a great match for your restaurant. I have several former teachers and supervisors, B, who can provide references upon request. Several former teachers and supervisors, that's the subject. Who makes that the subject pronoun. Can provide is our verb. References is our object. So be who. Okay, for that section, B, C, A, B. And for our workbook, final section here for today. So when you pair the subject pronoun I or the object pronoun me with another noun or pronoun, I or me comes second. So it always comes second if it's a situation you're describing more than one person or one group of people. So my sister and I, my sister and me, I and me will always come second. Use it to replace a collective noun whose members act as a group. Use they or them to replace a collective noun whose members act individually. If the plural sounds odd, change the noun to a plural. For example, jury members. So that's the other thing we have to consider. When you're identifying the subject, is it plural or singular? So our examples here, who did you call yesterday? So in this case, you are the subject. Whom is the object. So we have to use whom. Whom is the object of called. You as a subject. Whom did you call yesterday? The second, I'm sure whomever they hire will do well. Whoever is the subject of will do. They hire is an intervening expression that does not affect pronoun antecedent agreement. So to correct that, we say, I'm sure whoever they hire will do well. Whoever being the object, the subject. Each student takes their place online. Each is always singular and must take singular pronouns. So in order to do that, we say each student takes his or her place online. There would be plural, so we don't want to use that. We separate that as his or her. Send your reply to my secretary and myself. Myself is an object pronoun used only when the subject and object are the same. Yourself is used correctly here. So send your reply to my secretary and me, and be sure to copy yourself on all correspondence. So we have to add me and replace myself. We hired an assistant. This will help reduce your workload. This must have an antecedent. This is what we were talking about before. You need more information there. The sentence can be corrected in a number of ways. So they give us two examples. We hired an assistant to help reduce your workload. And we hired an assistant. The new hire will help reduce your workload. So you have to be careful how and when you use this. Did you send this for Mitch and I? Me is part of the compound object of for. I is a subject pronoun and is incorrect in the sentence. Did you is the subject. You send this for Mitch and I. So you as the subject, send as the verb, this for Mitch and me is the correct pronoun because it's an object pronoun. Okay. So on to our content topics. Use pronouns such as myself, yourself, himself, ourselves, and themselves only when a subject and an object are the same. For example, I know myself, or she did it herself, Never use these pronouns as subjects. And our first question there, write a letter to the new representative whom, after 2 recounts, finally was elected. So we want to look at whom. Is this being used correctly? Write a letter to the new representative whom. That doesn't sound correct because we want an subject.
Yeah,
Pronoun.
I think it's B.
What's that?
I think it's B. Whom
B.
to who?
Yes. So whom to who, right? Write a letter to the new representative who, after 2 recounts finally was elected. Okay. Alex sent a copy to Vivian and I. How do we want to change this? Alex sent a copy to Vivian and I. Is I the correct pronoun there?
Thank you. I too.
So it's either I or me, right? So Alex is our subject. So we know if Alex is our subject, then we can't have a subject pronoun. We need an object pronoun. That's going to be me. So we're going to use C,
Yes.
change Vivian,
And me.
I to Vivian and me. Very good. Okay. So as a manager of California Auto Parts Incorporated, I aim to provide the best value in replacement auto parts and installation services. Service team, what do we need here? Is this going to be a subject or an object?
Subject.
It's a subject because we haven't got to our verb yet, right? We don't know. It would appear that the service team members.
Yeah.
So it's service team members and I, right?
Yes.
Want our customers to trust us. So again, this is the subject, want is our verb, and our customers are the object here. Okay. So to trust us and come back for part replacement and installation, to ensure that customers receive the highest quality parts and services, we offer a 3-part satisfaction guarantee. When we deliver an estimate, the estimate lists the wholesale price of the part and the 10% stocking fee. If multiple options are available for a part, we will share the different prices, explain the options, and make recommendations that reflect the best value and choice for each situation. If the service costs exceed the estimate by more than 10%, we gladly complete the work.
A. Ourselves and the promise is free. No.
In this case, it's going to be plural. So you're on the right track. It's going to be ourselves. If the service costs exceed, C, we gladly complete the work ourselves and the balance is free. All parts are guaranteed for 90 days. We want each customer to feel secure when
they leave.
In this case, it's going to be singular again. And this is one they're really making you watch for. So we want each customer to
be.
It's C, he or she.
Okay.
Yeah, him or her. Those are
yeah, I see now.
Object. Yeah, and so C will be the subject pronouns because he or she is our subject. We want them to fill. Okay, and then that's why that's why should a part break or malfunction within 90 days of installation, we will provide a replacement part and services at no cost. I personally ensure that we will stand behind any part we install. If you have questions, ask anyone here. And
Whoever you speak with.
In this case, it's be, whoever.
Yeah, whoever.
Yeah. If you have questions, ask anyone here, and whoever you speak to will be happy to provide more information. Whoever is part of the subject, so it's a subject pronoun. Okay, 2 more here. For the past 3 years, I have had the pleasure of being part of the exceptional health care team at Manchester Pediatrics. I am sorry to inform you that as of November 15th of this year, I will no longer be with the practice. My colleagues at Manchester Pediatrics, Dr. Felix Hernandez and Dr. Jordan Carroll, are knowledgeable physicians skilled at working with young patients. At the beginning of November, the practice is also welcoming Dr. Tanya Smith.
Whoever comes to the. Who come to the who? C, B.
Did you say B?
Yeah,
D?
or A. Oh, whom? D.
It's B, who.
Who?
So yeah,
I
at
thought
the
I said
beginning of
that.
the practice, practice is also welcoming Dr. Tanya Smith. She's actually the subject here. So we're going to have a subject pronoun who comes to is our verb, the practice. The practice is the object there. So the practice after her residency in pediatrics at the prestigious Marsh Clinic in Nashua. These accomplished and dedicated physicians have decades of pediatric experience among them. What do we want to use here?
Which should give you confidence in their experience? A.
If that was, if we were combining the sentence, but if we're starting a new sentence, are we going to need more information?
Okay, which combining experience? This maybe D.
Let me see here.
Hold on.
It is D. Yes.
D.
This combined experience should give you confidence in their expertise. So yeah, this is a good one to use as an example. These accomplished and dedicated physicians have decades of pediatric experience among them. This combined experience should give you confidence in their expertise. Those other examples, we're missing that little bit of information. This alone isn't enough information. Which alone, unless that was a combined sentence, is not enough information. Which combined is incorrect. This combined experience is what we're looking for. Okay, and then please call the office to let the practice know the physician
Who you will be.
In this case, it's an object we're looking for, object pronoun.
Whom? See.
Whom? Yes. Please call the office to let the practice know. The practice here is the subject. Know is the verb. The physician is receiving the action, right? That's the object of the action. Whom you would like as your child's pediatrician. We realize that your child may require urgent care before you have chosen a doctor. Dr. Hernandez and I have spoken together, and it's singular, and they're the subject.
Him and I.
Did you say A?
Yeah. He and I.
A. Just like here, Dr. Hernandez and I have spoken together, and he and I have agreed that he will see all children who require urgent care. So we have B, D, C, A. Okay, last one. I am writing today on behalf of the citizens and pedestrians of this town to remind the community that dogs, though they can be wonderful companions, are not people. Their rights are not violated by having to walk on a leash, nor do we ask too much of their owners by insisting that they clean up after their pets. On a recent stroll down Main Street, my wife and I met several dogs off their leashes and wandering far ahead of their owners. These dogs bounded up to, which pronouns do we need there? I'll help out. These dogs is the subject.
B,
It's
my wife and I.
D. Yeah. These dogs bounded up to my wife and me. Me is an object pronoun. That's what we're looking for. What if one of us had a fear of dogs? There is an off-leash area in the local park. Every owner should keep this is singular. D.
D.
Every owner
His
should
or
keep,
her.
yes, his or her dog leashed outside of the park, because owner, if it was owners, like we just said, owners should keep, then we could use their. Dog leashed out of the park. The responsibility should be on owners to restrain their dogs, not on us to endure unleashed dogs. In addition, I find that all too often I must not so much walk down the sidewalk as tiptoe down it in an attempt to avoid dog droppings. Again, the responsibility lies with the dog owners. Anyone who can't stomach the thought of scooping up a dog's mess should not get a dog to begin with. It should not be up to pedestrians like so pedestrians, that's the subject. What do we need there? We're going to use the object pronoun.
Like myself.
It's going to be be. It's going to be me.
C.
Yeah, typically you only use myself, herself, yourself if you've already used you, he, or she, like in the second part of a sentence. So in this case, we haven't encountered that. We're going to use me to sidestep a dog's mess. Yeah. I urge the dog owners of this town to demonstrate some consideration. The community should insist that police officers enforce fines for dog owners who don't keep dogs on leashes and who don't clean up after
A.
Very good. Yep. So leashes and who don't clean up after them. We'll make that a complete sentence. And then these practices are against the law. So with these practices, we have enough information. We have the antecedent, the subject, and that is all. Okay. So any questions?
No question for me. Thank you.
Okay. So